Welcome everyone to another episode of the Hempy Talks. I'm very, very excited today to have Lawrence Serbin joining here with 35 years of experience in the industrial hemp industry. And he has lots of stories to share. He has lots of insights to share that we can all learn from. So join in this conversation and let's get started. Lawrence, a very warm welcome in the Hempy Talks.
All right. Thank you so much, Beatrix. It's a pleasure to have you invite me here.
It's amazing what I got to know about you when we started. We joined just before the recording, and I heard so many great things. And we just started a conversation by me saying that what I saw on your website was about trading with hemp. And then we got into a discussion about industrial hemp has been around for so long, and it has always had that potential, but somehow it didn't kick off. So we are going to answer that question of why just in a minute. But before asking you that question, let me just ask you, how did you get to know about industrial hemp and why it is important to you?
All right. Well, great question. In late 1990s, I was in college. I went to the University of Southern California, and I was a biology major. And in one of my classes, we basically had to do an oral presentation on anything we wanted. And I was very keen on doing a presentation that would be interesting for my fellow classmates. Biology, again, a little high tech and boring for people. So I wanted something that would hold everyone's interest. And that particular year, they had discovered the receptors in the brain for cannabinoids or THC. So I figured I would do a report on that, and that would be interesting for everyone. So I went to the library and I began to do research on hemp at that time, or on cannabis. And as I was looking up these more of the medical aspects of it, I began to run into all this other information. There was no internet back then. At that point, you had to actually go to the library and look everything up, with books and little card files. And as I was doing the research, I learned, they used to use hemp to make paper. And I was like, I never heard about that. I didn't know that. And and hemp was used to make paper. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And they used to use hemp seed and hemp seed oil as a food or as a bird feed. And I thought, gee, that's a really interesting concept. So I went ahead, I did my report. But then right after I graduated, I made the decision I didn't want to go into medicine. That's why I was a biology major, but I would rather go into business, but I wanted the business to be an environmental business, something that I could be proud of, something that would help the planet, make the world a better place. And around a month or two after I graduated, I kind of had an aha moment. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Hemp can make paper, it can make textiles, it can make, particle board, wood products, save the trees. Why not do that? And the only reason that we weren't doing it was because cannabis or hemp had been outlawed due to marijuana. So I figured, I was like, wow, okay, I can get into this. This is a whole industry that hasn't happened yet. That's just sitting there on the side, and it's just simply the law that's prevented it. So I got into it, and I always figured that it was a no-brainer. That is, we had enough people realize that industrial hemp was not marijuana and had very little to do with marijuana, that within about 10 years, by about the year 2000, that we should be able to have it legalized, we should be able to do all of these different things. Now, in the meantime, I wanted to do something with hemp, so I found that they were actually able to make hemp textiles out of China. So in 1994, I ended up forming my company, Hemp Traders, and I began to import hemp textiles, and I started off selling hemp fabrics in the United States. I live in Los Angeles. We have or had a very big textile industry here, making a lot of clothes. So I started that way, and going back to thinking that hemp would be legalized by 2000, I was actually wrong about that. And surprisingly, the first thing that got legalized right around 1996 was the legalized medical marijuana in California, where I live. And then around 2008, they legalized regular marijuana. And it wasn't until about 2018 that they actually legalized industrial hemp. So we were never able to do anything in the United States. And it was very disappointing because I had to sit by and watch countries like Germany, Netherlands, England, France, Spain, all of them legalize industrial hemp, and even Canada, and they began to have industries that take off. And I was sitting here, and all I could do was import products and then sell them in the US or even around the world. That's how I got into it. Along the way, I also got involved in hemp activism. So I was the president of the Business Alliance for Commerce and Hemp, which was a hemp advocacy organization. I also got on the board of the uh, Hemp Industries Association, and I eventually became the president of the Hemp Industries Association. I was the president for 2 years. And for in the government of California, after we legalized it here, I became the chairman of the California Industrial Hemp Advisory Board, which was kind of advised the government of California or the California Department of Agriculture how to best regulate hemp here in California. So that's how I got into it. We've grown over the years. I started with textiles, but I expanded into other fiber products, twine, yarn, rope, webbing, apparel. Also, I sell hemp seeds for people who want to grow hemp for fiber. And I've even made hemp particle board over the years. I had a company that sold hemp particle board.
That's wonderful, and the stories and this genuine desire. I do find it in some, not all of the conversations where people enter the hemp industry with the intention that they really want to create an impact and
Mm-hmm.
and make a change. And there are so many of us, I would say, entering it with so much optimism. And what you just mentioned, that sometimes it backfires and it doesn't pick up that quick, But in the case of the industrial hemp industry globally, it has been taking some time. And now I'm going back to that question of what do you think the reason behind it is, and when it is going to change, and how can it change?
All right, well, there's a few different reasons. So originally, the main reason was it was illegal. You can't develop an industry when you can't grow the product. So that was number one, and it was, that was entirely due to prohibition and the drug war that started in the 30s in the United States. And by 1938, they fully outlawed industrial hemp, under the guise of we're going to get rid of marijuana. So they didn't really separate the two, and they threw out the baby with the bathwater, so to say. So that was number one. Uh, but that led to a few other things. Then, because there has been no hemp growing, there was no development in terms of agriculture technology. If you go back and you look at other crops, cotton, corn, soy, wheat, uh, potatoes, canola, all these other ones, you'll basically see, if you look at, how much was harvested, through the late 1800s into the 1900s, it's about even. You don't see any increase. But starting around 1940s, you start seeing a huge increase in crop production, meaning they were getting more of that product per acre. Uh, Anywhere from between 1940 and the 2010s, they were able to get the average crop yield on everything was over 500%. So they were able to get 5 times more yield per acre. And in some cases, it was well over 1,000% on certain products. So that was number one. Hemp being outlawed never went through any of that. There was no selective breeding on it, optimization, hybridization, in order to be able to get a crop that could produce a lot more. There was also cotton became one of the predominant textiles or natural textiles that was out there. So everything began to focus more on cotton production and utilizing the machinery around cotton. And then, of course, after World War II, we had the introduction of synthetic fibers. And those came in, and that kind of took off, and all the things that hemp could do, one, we couldn't grow it, and two, no one was really even thinking about it. So that was a problem. But now we get to today. We finally outlawed hemp to grow in 2018 in the United States. And we say, hemp can make textiles, hemp can make building materials, hemp can be used for food, hemp can make paper, all of these different products, yet it seems like we're just never quite able to make the leap. It seems like it's always been a niche product, always more expensive, just out of reach. So the thing is, hemp can do all of those things, but the problem is and it's entirely the economics of it. And there's two aspects of this. One, in order to get a farmer to grow any particular crop, they have to be able to make money off of it. It has to be worth their while. Farmer will entirely look upon a crop as how much money can I earn per acre or per hectare on it. They'll say, can I earn, $500 per acre? Can I earn $1,000 per acre? Something like that is what they're looking at. Now, if one crop only earns $400 an acre and another one earns $1,000 an acre, it's a no-brainer for them. They're going to go for what's worth a lot more. On the entire other end of the spectrum is how much does the raw material cost? You can get cotton, at this price. You can get, the other natural fiber out there would be flax. You can get it at this price. There's also sisal and a few others. There's also synthetic fibers. There's nylon, rayon, tencel. You can get them, those at a particular price as well. And with hemp, we're so far behind. So we're really using a lot of technology that hasn't advanced since the 1930s on both how to grow it, the actual crop that you're growing, and then how to harvest it, how to get it. So bottom line is farmers aren't earning enough to allow them to grow it. And then the raw material that you get, which would be the bast fiber, which is the bark fiber, or the core fiber, is too expensive in order to allow it to enter a lot of these industries. So that's the main thing right there. Farmers aren't earning enough and the raw materials are too expensive. However, there is a solution to all of this. And I've been speaking about this. I first grew hemp myself back in 2021. And after growing it, it wasn't until I grew it, and all those years before I could, I began to realize what the issues were. I saw it firsthand. And I looked at it and I saw how we grew it. I saw how it was harvested. And I think that there has to be a better way, to do it. So currently, what they do is hemp is grown fairly dense, it grows very tall. Then a machine will come in, it will chop it down, the whole stalks fall down in the field. Then they have to let it ret in the field. Retting is synonymous to the word rotting. So it's basically decomposing in the field. And you have to do that because if later on you want to separate the bark fiber or the bast fiber from the core fiber. If you don't do that, if you don't let it rot, then it becomes very difficult to be able to separate those two. So they chop it down, lay it in the field, let it ret. Then after it's sufficiently retted, then they'll bale it up into a square bale, and then that bale has to go to a decortication factory. So that's a factory that can then take the bale and then they grind it up and they separate the fibers. There's a lot of problems with this method at the moment. Number one, as you chop down the hemp and you let it sit in the field, retting is as I mentioned, is rotting. It requires bacteria, and the bacteria require water and the right temperature. So when you let it sit in the field, if the area is too dry or too cold, you're not going to get the right amount of retting to happen. If there's too much water and it's a little too warm, the retting may happen too quickly, and then you go too far, and the whole fiber, everything begins to decompose, and you ruined it. So it's almost like waiting for fruit to ripen. You have to be able to know what's going on, know the temperature, know the humidity, and be able to do it just at the right time so it's retted enough that it is separated, but not enough that you're going to ruin your crop. That's also the way that flax is grown as well. And this is a big problem. Farmers can lose their entire crop. What if you chop it down and then it rains for 2 weeks? You could lose your entire crop, not to mention having to wait. If it's dry and you have to let it sit there for 2, 3, 4 weeks, that is time that your fields can't be used for anything else. So there's a lot involved. Then you have to take it to a decortication factory. Well, that decortication factory costs millions to build. And I mean millions, for a tiny little factory, it'll be a couple of $1 million. If you want a big factory, it's going to be in the tens of millions of dollars. And if you want to be able to do it cheaply, you need the tens of millions of dollars. You need that, what they call economies of scale. Plus, you have to take it to the factory, and there's a transportation cost involved. So what this means is that you have to build a factory right in the area where they're growing hemp, I'd say within 20 miles or so, certainly no more than 50 miles. Beyond that, it's just not economical. You're paying for just transporting the raw stock, which is a huge thing, which means in order for this to work, you have to have a lot of different factories all over the country in order to do this. So it makes the investment to get into hemp very expensive. So, as you can see, the current process of doing hemp is very difficult. It's out of a very high bar to get over. However, as I mentioned, there is a solution to all of this. There always is. And when I grew hemp for the first time and I looked, I said, there's got to be a way. Can't we just chop down the hemp and decorticate it all at the same time, all in one shot? And I got that idea because the first time I grew hemp, I hired a farmer and he grew it. I'm not a farmer myself, but hired a man to do it, gave him the seeds, gave him money, told him how to do it, and he did it for me, and we were there. And early on, maybe about 2 months after we had planted, and they were about maybe 4 or 5 feet tall, he was asking me, he says, well, where's the fiber in all of this? So I said, oh, and the fiber is the bark. And went into the field, and I said, the problem is it's really hard to peel the bark off of the stalk. And I pulled up a plant, broke it with my hands, and I went to peel it off, and it peeled off very easily. And I was like, wait a minute, I was a little shocked. I said that, it shouldn't be doing that. It should be very difficult to peel it off. And I went and realized that it just, even with my pinky, I was able to peel it right off. And it occurred to me that when it is green, when it is alive, what's inside of it is kind of like a glue that is not yet dried and hardened. So when it's alive and you chop it and you peel it, the fiber just comes right off. However, if you chop it down in the field, then let it dry, it's like glue that dries into it. And then it becomes very hard to peel that fiber off, hence you need the retting. So I realized, I looked at that, and we were in a big farm area, and I looked at all the different farm equipment for harvesting, cotton, wheat, rye, fruits, vegetables, everything. I said, well, this is not rocket science here. There's got to be a way that we could be able to chop it down and decorticate all at the same time. And no machines like that existed, but I was able to look around, and I found that there was a machine that had been invented in China that they were using to decorticate sisal, S-I-S-A-L, which is also, it's a similar plant to hemp in that the fiber is the bark, yet it grows in more tropical areas. And they had developed a tiny little machine, no bigger than a desk, and they were chopping the sisal hemp and they were throwing it inside, and this machine was able to separate the bark from the core. So I said, I wonder if that could work for hemp. So we ended up buying one of those machines, brought it back to California, grew hemp another year, and when the time was right, we chopped it down, threw it in the machine, and found out when the hemp is fresh, no problem, separates very easily. So then I found another person involved in hemp, actually on the other side of the country in Pennsylvania. And there's a real interesting thing. They were located in Amish country. And I don't know, are you familiar with the Amish people of America?
Nope.
They are a religious group that came to
Oh,
America
the Amish. Yes, yes,
17
yes.
and 1800s, actually from Germany. And they live a very simple life. They do not believe too much in technology, cars, telephones. They do everything horse and cart. Yet they're very good with machinery. And we went over there, and a number of them owned little machine shops. So we explained to them our idea, they got on it, and we were able to build a machine that utilized the technology from the decorticator along with other technology that can chop down the hemp and feed it in. And we actually built a machine that chops down the hemp, feeds it in, and decorticates it all at the same time. And we just tested it in 2024, just last year. We were able to make it, and we were able to get it to work. So let's look at the benefits of this. It's huge. And number one, if you can decorticate on the farm, that means you don't have to build a multi-million-dollar decortication facility. And that's number one. So immediately, there's a lot less investment that has to get made. That's number one. Number two, if you're doing it on a farm, you don't have to transport, the whole hemp stalk anywhere. So you've eliminated all of that transportation cost right there. Number three, if you're decorticating at the time that it's harvested, then you don't have to wait for the fiber to sit in the field and ret. So you're eliminating all of that time. You're also eliminating the uncertainty of that, where the weather could play a part, over-retting or under-retting. It's all done all at one time. So you eliminate all of that. And then the best part of it is that if the farmer doesn't have to send the fiber to a decortication facility, that means the farmer now gets the income for selling the fiber that's separated. So he'll sell the basset fiber, and then he'll sell the herd fiber. So I didn't get into the actual economics of it, but currently, if you grow hemp in America, a farmer would gross, and I say gross, this is before his expenses, only $800 per acre from hemp. But now with this machinery, that goes up to $2,400 per acre. So it's a lot more money for the farmer, and the cost of the fiber, on the other hand, drops by more than half. So farmer triples his income, the cost of the raw material has gone down by half, and this means that we are going to be able to have the hemp industry take off. And I like to say this machinery will be for hemp is what the cotton gin was for cotton.
That's absolutely amazing. And thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for sharing it here. I'm so excited to see this, and I'm sure you are going to be the number one favorite among many farmers in America, but also all around the world. Introducing this technology will and can definitely revolutionize the hemp industry. And what you very accurately described as challenges, I can just second that after the podcast episodes and meeting people from different countries and talking about industrial hemp and the situation and the challenges. And yes, decortication is a significant challenge in many countries. And having a solution like the one you introduced can definitely bring in a radical change. So I'm so looking forward to this. And I'm sure whenever we are going to have another time for a discussion, or maybe we are going to meet in person, then definitely is going to be a very different place for industrial hemp among many other
Mm-hmm.
crops as well. And rightly so, it really starts with the farmers and the farmers buying in before any other players in the supply chain can be activated. So that's really
Right,
the start of it. So
right.
that's absolutely amazing. I would like to acknowledge you for that and also congratulate you on developing and experimenting until it worked out. I'm really hoping that it's, and also that just a question that came up for me, is it something that you are going to be talking about or introducing at the upcoming NOCO Hemp Expo?
Uh, Probably not, as we're not quite ready. What
Okay.
the limiting factor was we just started building the machine last year in
Okay.
2024. It was in 2023 that we proved that the decorticator worked. It was in 2024 that we had to, you know, connect that decorticator to a harvesting thing and make sure it all worked and it all went in. And what really holds us back here is that hemp is an annual crop. So we had to wait until around maybe June before the hemp was tall enough that we could, begin to utilize our machine. And we had to end at the very, very end. We went all the way through around November. And even then, that was too late because if you don't harvest the hemp, it begins to die automatically.
Yes.
And so when optimally the harvest would be in August. Usually sometime around the month of August. Maybe you could go into September a little bit. Maybe you could go into late July. But then after that, hemp begins to naturally die as it goes to creating the seeds. They go to flower, and then they go to seed. And by November, the plant's all dead and dried up. And when you try to use this equipment, it's no longer working that well. So we had to put it on hold and wait for the following year. So I did in 2024, I spoke about this. They had a contest to kind of like Shark Tank, where who had the best idea for hemp. And I pitched this idea and I ended up winning. So that was good. And we were hoping we'd have something ready for this year, but we're just not ready yet because we need a little bit more refinement that we have to do. So the machinery works, but it requires a little more refinement to we're at a part where we believe we can have a product that can enter the market and it would be suitable for farmers to use it. So we need one more year. So possibly next we'll be introducing it officially.
Wonderful. So 2026 year is going to be a globally successful year for the
Mm-hmm.
industrial hemp industry, and I'm looking forward to this. After this amazing announcement and lots of other things that you shared during the conversation, I have only one last question to ask you: is what is it that you would like to leave as a message with people listening to this conversation, and if they are interested in industrial hemp and they
Well,
want to create with it?
yeah, well, there's a few things that they can do. One, if you're interested in growing hemp or being a part of our company developing this machine, you can certainly contact me. We have contact at hemptraders.com. I'll get that email. I also will give free advice, if you want to grow hemp for fiber. And it would be good advice because a lot of people can do anything wrong the first time, and I can help out. And then number three, it would be give people hope that all of these things that we're talking about, that you can do with hemp are about ready. As we get this machine going, the cost of the hemp fiber goes down. It means, for example, building a hemp building is going to be cheaper than other products. And at that moment, everything's just going to flip over. A lot of people, a lot of things that we do, and it's normal, is you want value and you want things to be the least expensive as possible. Whether you're buying something or building something or hiring somebody, we usually want to be able to pay the least amount, but then have the best quality. And hemp has always been more expensive, but with this new technology, hemp is going to all of a sudden be a lower expensive option. And that's just the whole thing is going to be like, breaking a boulder off a cliff and just start rolling down the hill, creating an avalanche. It's just going to take off incredibly. So now's the time to get into it if you're interested.
Absolutely amazing messages, all of them. Thank you so much. And thank you for this wonderful discussion, very inspirational, and definitely a lot to learn from you and a lot to come. So we are all looking forward to 2026, and please keep an eye on Hemp Traders if you are listening to this episode, because lots of things and exciting things are coming out. For today, thank you for being here, Lawrence. It was really a pleasure having you.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. And then if anyone wants to see more about this, we do have our website, which is just hemptraders.com. And we have videos and, all the products that we sell and videos and information and papers on how to grow hemp. So it's a good resource.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody listening, I'm going to come back with another episode of the Hempy Talks, bringing you somebody interesting, as always, every Monday, to talk about industrial hemp, to talk about creation, and to share different insights and perspectives. Thank you all for listening to this and being here.
All right. Thank you, Beatrix.